कितना लोड कैरी कर सकता है, दैट इज कितना वेट कैरी कर सकता है या कितना लोड कैरी कर सकता है, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज पेलोड ऑफ दैट व्हीकल. So fine, again then for non-standard vehicles there are other parameters if the vehicles are of some different category. There are geometric parameters, there are excavation vehicles, then there are dumping vehicles. So ये non-standard vehicles we talk about. So in the year 2008 there were about more than 100 million registered vehicles. We should be worried more only about the commercial vehicles part of it. So commercial vehicles are approximately 5% of that. Okay, so approximately 5 million, 50 lakh commercial vehicles were registered in the year 2008. I am not having recent data, but for urban freight vehicles, it is assumed that 3-wheeler tempos are having a growth rate of 6 to 6.5% year-on-year growth. Okay, and 4-wheeler tempos are having approximately 9% year-on-year growth. And vehicle registration में in India, you might be knowing in some other statistics also it might have reflected that approximately 70% of vehicles that are being registered in India are two-wheelers. Okay. So the movement of two-wheelers is also quite unregulated. So congestion में they also play a role. It is not like that only commercial vehicles are creating congestion. Okay. So that is a different story. I have taken some key points about some major cities, how goods movement takes place, but I guess this can skip because this case study needs to be dealt in further detail. But this much I can say that like for example Mumbai, if we talk about Mumbai, north-south, east-west connectivity is very good, okay, for freight also. But if you are not in that north-south, east-west, then freight transportation becomes very problematic. So there are every city, we can skip this practice. Okay. How each city is having separate regulation for goods vehicle. ये पूरे city में भी common नहीं है. A city is divided into 7, 10, 20 zones sometimes. और जो regulation एक zone में है, वो regulation दूसरे zone में है ऐसा जरूरी नहीं. जो regulation दो zones पे एक time पे है, वो तीसरे zone में अलग time पे है. So this case study, or you can say understanding UGM in Chennai in itself is a PhD. Understanding UGM in Kolkata in itself is a PhD. This cannot be dealt in both these sides, but you can. One thing is common, as I have said before also, that because the sprawl is different, the land use planning of each city is different, the goods movement, or you can say the culture of freight is different in each city. So also simultaneously with increasing urbanization, the planning development authority of each city is having its future plans. 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, we want to grow in this direction. We want our transport hub to move in this direction. We want our passenger transport or public transport to develop in such a way. So that is like, for example, when we have planned metro in a particular direction or in a particular phase. Okay. So we are assuming that residential and commercial activities are to be concentrated in that area. Okay. So उसके synchronization में आपकी logistics or commercial or you can say goods movement related activities plan हो वैसा जरूरी है. So this master plan also, it doesn't work always as planned. Okay. So it also faces several ups and downs. Changes with the population structure. There are estimates by Terry, that is Energy Research Institute. It estimates that ये जो 2030 का जो estimate है, we have almost reached there in 2025. So rate of urbanization has changed very quickly in the last couple of decades. ये एक बहुत major change है. ये जो पहले rate of urbanization था या फिर urban population था, उसके comparison में हर एक state में urban population बहुत ज़्यादा rapidly grow कर रहा है. Okay. And we are having almost 43 cities which are more than 4 million, and which is expected to reach around 60 or 63, 65 cities by 2030. Okay, by 2030 we'll be having 60, 65 cities, जिनका population 40 lakhs से ज़्यादा है, and there will be around 6 or 8 cities which are having population in excess of 10 million. See here it is 68 cities which are having population more than 4 million. You can understand the scale, right? पूरे यूरोप में there are 35 cities. पूरे in the entire of Europe there are 35 cities which are having population more than 4 million. That is 40 lakhs. In India alone there are 40. Okay. So if we talk about urban freight movement or urban goods movement, we cannot replicate what they are doing. Okay. Because a country like Denmark or a country like Sweden is having population of 5, cities are having population of 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs, 8 lakhs, and they are telling them as metropolitan areas. Okay. Here 4-5 lakhs are in small towns like Vapi, Valsad, Navsari. These towns are having this. We are not even considering that these are having traffic problems. Okay. So if we talk about traffic, if we talk about scale of urbanization, if we talk about freight movement, we are comparable only with two major countries, that is US and China. That to some extent only to China. Okay. So we cannot replicate their studies, because if we see when I was doing my PhD back in 2017, okay, I was finding it very difficult to find research papers of urban freight transport in Indian cinema. Very limited papers, very fundamental basic studies. So during my coursework and with multiple discussions with my guide, I gradually realized that in India nobody shares their goods movement data. Indian tendency ये है कि आपको goods movement का data nobody will share, genuine data nobody will share. So when you are not having genuine data, it is very difficult to do any sort of research. Okay. And जो central repositories हैं, okay, for example, in developed countries, all the freight vehicles, regional freight vehicles, in many cities, urban freight vehicles are geotagged. Okay, are geotagged. उनका year over year movement का पूरा डेटा गवर्नमेंट के पास बाय डिफॉल्ट है. कोई कंपनी से कोई डेटा लेने की जरूरत नहीं. So they already know how many freight vehicles are moving, in which zone they are moving, at what timings they are moving. With our scenario, in Indian scenario, urban freight में central repository जैसा regulatory, there are ऐसा कोई regulatory system ही नहीं है जो urban freight का डेटा regularly generate करे. Like when I was doing my research on urban freight, on textile freight in Surat, and then one of my students is doing for textile freight in Ahmedabad. So we were surprised to know that there is only RTO, there is SMC. Okay. SMC से आपको क्या डेटा मिलेगा कि कहाँ पे टेक्सटाइल का एस्टैब्लिशमेंट का हमने परमिशन दिया, कहाँ पे हमने लॉजिस्टिक्स पार्क का परमिशन दिया, उसका कितना कैपेसिटी है, कितना पार्किंग कैपेसिटी है, कितना पार्किंग चार्जेस है वगैरह. ओके, बेसिक जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चरल डिटेल्स. ओके, आरटीओ से आपको मैक्सिमम क्या मिलेगा, हाउ मेनी नंबर ऑफ रजिस्टर्ड व्हीकल्स आर देयर. ओके, उनका कौन सा बीएस स्टैंडर्ड है, भारत स्टेट जो पॉल्यूशन नॉर्म्स है ना, तो कितने व्हीकल्स आपको कौन से नॉर्म्स के रजिस्टर्ड है, दिस मच डेटा है. You do not have any idea. I don't know if recently they have developed some system. You do not have any idea that in city how many number of vehicles are utilized at any given point of time, how many number of vehicles का कितना टन किलोमीटर यूजेज हो रहा है, या फिर फ्रेट का टोटल कितना टन किलोमीटर, अप्रोक्सीमेट एक रफ एस्टिमेट भी नहीं है. Okay, so in such scenario, the only way that remains for doing any study is primary data. You have to go door to door and collect data. Then if you go to retailers, they'll say they'll simply not share their data. Reasons है, you might be from GST, you might be from excise, you might be from income tax or any other department. आप कितना भी उनको assurance दे दो that the data secrecy will be maintained, they will not share data. Because it is indirectly revealing the extent of business that they are doing. Okay, and many of with this GST scenario and filing of GST and payment of then this GST credit and all, nobody shares actual data. Okay. So each businesses might be doing some of the things beyond the boundaries of taxation, or they might be hiding certain transactions from the taxation. So it is obvious that they will not be sharing. If you go to transport hubs, they will not be sharing. If you go to this truck operators, they are not educated enough to, because their fundamental requirement is, okay, I am getting a trip from point A to point B, I am charging this much. This is only my concern. What is being loaded or unloaded, that is not my concern. So you do not get to know the entire, you are not able to complete the chain. Okay, for example, if we talk about textile industry in Surat, there are, starting from that, the entire textile industry in Surat is 70 to 75% it is not natural yarn, it is processed yarn, okay, which is coming from Reliance, from Surat, Hazira and Silvassa. Okay, so that yarn is coming, each of that power loom unit is converting that yarn into fabric, and then that fabric goes into numerous activities like dyeing, then there are printing, then there are artworks, depending upon the fabric that is finally produced. But it goes 7 to 8 different cycles before the final product is produced. Now, this transportation of goods starting from HCV, जिसमें यान आता है से लेके two-wheelers. If you go in that ring road area, market area, you will see many two-wheelers which are carrying that loads of saris or some fabric. Okay, so here your entire this concept itself gets changed when you see people using two-wheelers for freight transport, because your entire strategy is assuming that there are three-wheelers and there are four-wheelers and there are HCVs and LCVs. So you cannot simply ignore कि ये two-wheeler पे जा रहा है तो इसको हम freight में consider नहीं करते. Okay, so the complexity is at a different level. Okay, that is what I was trying to say. And urbanization adds to it. Urbanization continuously adds to it. The report says that India will be 1.2 trillion. So here's other things. Okay, per ton kilometer का rates है. This is for bulk transportation if it takes place. Freight rates in India are around 1 to 1.35 rupees per ton kilometer. 1 ton 1 kilometer का ये rate है back in 2002. Now these are for regional freights. If you see it for urban freight, it is close to 6 to 8 rupees. It is close to 6 to 8 rupees. 1 ton kilometer अगर आपको urban area में transport करना है freight को, so it is close to 6 to 8 rupees, which is 4 times, 5 times in some cases. In some cities, it is 5 to 6 times of that of regional freight. Other countries are having higher rates for freight transport, but the you can say ratio between the regional freight and urban freight is not so. The difference is not so high. So obvious है quantities कम हो जाती है, छोटे vehicles में जाना लग जाता है, तो उसमें रेट बढ़ जाता है. But payload and everything kilometer भी. One more staggering difference is if you go in developed countries, the truck on an average runs for 400 kilometers for regional freights. Okay. Because the more inefficient your regional freight is, indirectly your urban freight will be inefficient. ऐसा नहीं है कि regional freight आपका कितना भी inefficient है, urban freight efficiently चलता रहेगा. It will not work like that. Okay. Because ultimately आपके regional freight से deliveries delay होती जा रही है, तो फिर urban freight में deliveries बढ़ती जा रही है. Okay. Because more number of deliveries are required in regional freight. Okay. The more number of deliveries will be more freight trips will be there in urban freights also. So in developed countries it is close to 400 kilometers. एक ट्रक जो HCV है दिन में 400 kilometers कवर करता है on an average. In India it is 250, maximum 300 kilometers. If there are you can say expressways along the corridor. So ये overloading possible नहीं है with the dimension of vehicles allowed. Obviously, when we are switching from conventional ICE to electric vehicles, जो existing loading है उसमें भी reduction आएगा. Overloading is not in the scenario. So what choices do we have? We have to make our freight vehicles more efficient so that the range improves. So fine, these are some big data. Accessibility and condition, this we have already discussed. Accessibility is a place is you can say reachable by multiple modes. That is its accessibility. अब कोई एक प्लेस का जितना ज़्यादा accessibility होगा business point of view से वो इतना ज़्यादा अच्छा place माना जाएगा. Because a person can come by bus also, a person can come by walking also, by metro also, by car also. So उसका accessibility high है. तो जैसे ही किसी प्लेस का accessibility high होगा, उसका congestion high हो जाएगा. क्योंकि बहुत सारे अलग-अलग vehicles के अलग-अलग mode of transport से लोग आएंगे. जैसे ही congestion high होना चालू हो जाएगा, वो प्लेस का value, economic value कम होते जाएगा. So this becomes like a cycle. वो प्लेस का इकोनॉमिक वैल्यू कम होते जाएगा, कोई दूसरे आउटस्कर्ट में प्लेस का जहाँ पे एक्सेसिबिलिटी अच्छा है उसका इकोनॉमिक वैल्यू धीरे धीरे बढ़ना चालू होगा. फिर जैसे उसका इकोनॉमिक वैल्यू बढ़ेगा, वहाँ पे एक्सेसिबिलिटी बढ़ेगा, तो फिर वहाँ पे कंजेशन बढ़ेगा. फिर वापस वो और आउटवर्ड्स मूवमेंट. दैट इज हाउ स्क्रॉल टेक्स प्लेस बेसिकली. ओके, फर्स्ट इट इज कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड, फिर यहाँ पे कंजेशन ज़्यादा होने लगा तो थोड़ा स्पेस बढ़ा दिया. लाइकवाइज द सिटी ऑल्सो. So congestion and accessibility are, you can say, complementary to each other. Where the accessibility will be more, over a period of time, congestion will be more. And once congestion increases beyond the limit, if it is not controlled, the economic value is going to get reduced. So I have taken up this case study. One of my students is doing this. A similar case है. ये freight का data, this is how we are right to collect the data. So you have to mark the corridors. You have to first understand the cycle of that particular commodity. Okay, whenever you are doing study on urban freight, you have to stick to a particular industry. Okay, either it can be FMCG, or it can be furniture, it can be construction goods, or you can say construction commodities. It can be textiles. So once you have identified the industry, you will identify the major corridors or major zones in which the activities related to that particular industry are dominant. Okay. And once you have identified the zones, you are supposed to identify the corridors or the roads that are largely used for movement of goods in that particular city. Once you identify the roads, you have to do volume count. You have to do volume count. Obviously, you have to do classified. You have to find out three-wheelers, small commercial vehicles, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, large commercial vehicles. If some other category of vehicle is used for freight, वो और फिर उसका PCU impact. Okay. फिर जो हम लोग normal transport planning में करते हैं वैसे. So this is what one of my student has said. How SC like scooters and motorcycles का कितना proportion है, auto rickshaw का, car का, buses का, LCVs का. So this volume count again it depends that there are some markets will have more movement during the weekend. जो end consumer movement है वो weekend में ज़्यादा होगा. अगर market weekly off किसी weekday में observe कर रहा है, like Monday, some markets are closed on Saturdays, some markets are closed on Mondays. So likewise you have to study. Normally in any if you go in any volume count of any city, the component of LCV that you will find, like commercial vehicles or common tempos that you will find, will range from 1% to 5%. It will not cross 5% in any city. 5% से ज़्यादा vehicles will little bit like say if you go by that blank statistics. Now we have studied about this. We have discussed. Okay, there are possible solutions. Changes in policy, or you can say governing regulations. there are policies and you can say restrictions in place so that freight movement are having the you can say, ill effects or you can say the congestion effects of freight movement is reduced as much as possible. Then there can be company driven or industry led changes. But for that the industry has to be a major player in urban freight in that particular sector. So they can have consolidated operations, they can have more scheduled and synchronized deliveries. So use of routine and scheduling software, improvement in fuel efficiency और use of alternate deliveries provided. एक इंडस्ट्री का सप्लाई चेन नेटवर्क वैसा है, हर एक इंडस्ट्री में कंसोलिडेशन पॉसिबल नहीं है. ये this you might have seen urban planning people might be knowing that a city normally designs over a period of time in every master plan they normally propose a ring road, okay, to bypass the congestion the existing city के congestion को bypass करने के लिए normally एक ring road every 20-30 years propose होता है, okay. Then by the time that ring road is fully utilized in the next proposed plan a ring road with a you can say on a further outskirt it is done, okay. So ये एक standard procedure है, government policy है congestion को कर्व करने की. There can be dedicated roads or you can say dedicated lanes for freight, okay. But वो इतना practical solution नहीं है. यहाँ पे लोग BRTS के लिए को dedicated नहीं रख रहे तो freight के लिए को पास. There are loading unloading zones. This is in the होलसेल मार्केट एरिया जहाँ पे नॉर्मली होलसेल मार्केट्स रहते हैं किसी चीज़ के, वहाँ पे लोडिंग अनलोडिंग एरिया एक फिक्स कर देते हैं. एंड फ्रॉम दैट पर्टिकुलर लोडिंग अनलोडिंग एरिया टू इंडिविजुअल होलसेलर्स और इंडिविजुअल यूनिट्स देयर आर NMTs are used, non motorized vehicles are used, which are having specialized lanes or sometimes you can have that they are manually carried like this. This was what I was talking about. There will be you can say circular rings developed. ये जो circular rings है like in the year 87, then the year 97, today in the year 2025, if you see under it is a lot different. Okay, some of the problems which can be generally observed, like if you see there are off-peak hours or there are कोई regulatory authority अगर in place नहीं है so people will start loading unloading of goods on the road itself, okay. Assuming that it will take time कौन सा traffic जाम करेगा, okay. Especially during the off peak hours में जब ये regulated नहीं होता है तो देखा होगा loading unloading becomes more you can say convenience के हिसाब से वो लोग modify कर लेते हैं, okay. There are instances where vehicles are parked, sometimes even the municipal vehicles are जो आपका वेस्ट कलेक्शन के व्हीकल्स होते हैं, सॉलिड वेस्ट कलेक्शन के व्हीकल्स होते हैं, कंस्ट्रक्शन व्हीकल्स होते हैं, देयर आर नॉन मोटराइज्ड और यू कैन से एनिमल ड्रिवन व्हीकल्स आर पार्क्ड, ओके. द हॉकर्स आर पार्किंग देयर व्हीकल डिपेंडिंग ऑन द कस्टमर्स they get. So these are some pictures of most of these pictures we have seen in our daily routine. There is nothing new to that. Okay, people are parking anywhere, people are loading and loading anywhere, people are not worried how much excessive load their commercial vehicle is carrying. Okay, कोई commercial vehicle है तो you might have seen a 3-wheeler or a 4-wheeler tempo is having that frame, okay, and the goods are supposed to stay within that frame. But if the goods are not having weight by volume ratio अगर वैसे है कि आपका बहुत ज़्यादा weight नहीं है मटेरियल, जैसे आपने कॉटन तो it is like becoming like a balloon, आपने देखा होगा. उसको तो कुछ प्रॉब्लम नहीं होता बट उसके वजह से कंजेशन में बहुत ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम. Okay, so such practices are very common. Okay, there are policies freight movement को कंट्रोल करने के लिए. See, freight movement is basically urban freight movement is basically within the jurisdiction of ULB. Urban local body के jurisdiction के अंदर का problem है. So the first person, or you can say the first organization that should try to solve it is the municipal corporation or municipality. Okay. If it goes beyond the reach of it, तो ये रेगुलेशन ऐसा है जो म्यूनसिपैलिटी नहीं लेके आ सकती, तो फिर वो स्टेट लेवल पॉलिसी या नेशनल लेवल पॉलिसी से कंट्रोल है. जैसे डायमेंशन ऑफ व्हीकल है, फिर डायमेंशन ऑफ फ्रेट व्हीकल है या कमर्शियल व्हीकल है, ये नेशनल पॉलिसी का पार्ट है. ओके, इसमें अर्बन लोकल बॉडी या म्यूनसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन का कोई रोल नहीं. ये नेशनली डिसाइडेड है कि फ्रेट व्हीकल्स का डायमेंशन या पेलोड या कैपेसिटी इतना होना चाहिए. ओके, देन लेन रेगुलेशन और यू कैन से zoning is done at a central planning level, but there can be certain problems which have to be solved locally also. Okay, but like some problems are to be solved by the society or by the commercial complex itself. Okay, so policy making itself cannot solve everything, but yes, we need to have policy in place. So there are some policies that okay, each state is having different policy. क्योंकि हर एक स्टेट में अलग इंडस्ट्री डेवलप है, वो इंडस्ट्री का अलग फ्रेट मूवमेंट सेक्टर है, तो हर एक सिटी का पॉलिसी सेम नहीं है. मेन ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ द पॉलिसी इज सस्टेनेबल अर्बन फ्रेट ट्रांसपोर्ट. वो तो ऑब्वियस है. इट शुड बी इक्वल फॉर ऑल द स्टेक होल्डर्स. व्हेनेवर यू आर डिजाइनिंग अ पॉलिसी, इट शुड नॉट बी बायस्ड टुवर्ड्स द रेसिडेंट or it should not be biased towards the industry or the some sort of consortium of industry. Construction industry के लिए biased है या कोई particular industry जिसका dominant role है urban government, उस पर biased है, ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. Public private partnerships can solve problems sometimes. Integration of policy measures are important, and I have already told. Policy measures should be enhanced to develop by the private sector. You cannot keep a policy for everything. Okay, so private players and industry should also take initiative that urban freight movement or urban transport system becomes efficient. Okay, जैसे मैंने बताया, टाइमिंग रेगुलेशन हो सकते हैं, वेट एंड साइज रेगुलेशन हो सकते हैं, रूट्स के रेगुलेशन हो सकते हैं. तो कुछ रेगुलेशन आपके स्टेट लेवल पे मैनेज होंगे, कुछ रेगुलेशन नेशनल लेवल पे मैनेज होंगे, कुछ रेगुलेशन लोकल लेवल पे म्यूनसिपैलिटी लेवल पे मैनेज. कौन से रूट को लॉरी रूट डिसाइड करना है या नो व्हीकल रूट डिसाइड करना है. देयर आर सम ऑन सम डेज, जैसे नॉर्मली हम लोग बोलते हैं ना, ये संडे मार्केट है, वहाँ पे ओनली वॉकिंग वी कैन गो, ओके, लॉरी रूट्स. या फिर ये फूड मार्केट है या नाइट फूड मार्केट है, यू हैव टू पार्क हियर ओनली एंड देन यू हैव टू वॉक. तो ये सारे लोकल डिसीजंस. देन व्हीकल वेट रेगुलेशन भी है, दिस आई हैव ऑलरेडी टोल्ड. टाइम रेगुलेशन भी मैक्सिमम केसेस में लोकल अथॉरिटी ही डिसाइड करती है. So gaining freight industry support from freight strategies and initiatives, approaches available, freight transport partnerships, obvious है. You cannot impose every decision that you take. Okay, the other stakeholders should be in loop. Okay, improving journey reliability of goods vehicle. So urban freight information mapping, road pricing, allowing night deliveries, lorry lanes, class. ये कौन से ऑब्जेक्टिव को अचीव करने के लिए आप क्या मेथोडोलॉजी यूज कर रहे हो, उसका एक समरी. Okay, based on the literature. Okay. So assisting the journey of goods vehicle and delivery and reducing good vehicle trips by assigning lorry, assigning timings, by urban information of freight vehicles. Freight vehicle information system develop करके. There are methods we can use. There are nowadays with use of internet and the smartphone, it is very possible. If you hire any vehicle, especially passenger transport vehicle, अगर आप कोई भी hire करते हो, so like for example, if you hire a private bus, you will always see that the driver will say that I cannot switch off my phone, or when the vehicle is at a standstill position, he will put the AC off. Okay, so ये practices क्या है? Because the vehicles are zero time. The owner of the vehicle or the industry is knowing that whether it is in movement or it has stopped. And if it has stopped, तो इसका efficiency इतना बढ़ना चाहिए, इसका किलोमीटर रन इतना बढ़ना चाहिए. अगर कहीं पे ड्राइवर ने पर्सनल रीजन से हॉल्ट ले लिया है तो द ओनर नोज. Okay, if a delivery is supposed to be completed in 4 hours, it is taking 6 hours. So he is knowing where exactly the remaining 2 hours was, where the driver was. So ये use of ICT in urban freight, it is a different topic altogether. Like you can see. Okay, so we'll see use of e-vehicles after a short break. Okay, I hope you have got a broad idea of the complexity involved in freight transport. Any questions you can ask?
Generally, what you have discussed that the traffic is majorly due to HMV, or I can say large vehicles. But in actual case, what I have seen, the traffic is generally due to two-wheelers only. Why? I just take an example. I was traveling somewhere else, and what I have found that if a two-wheeler guy just found a little space, he just want to drive his two-wheeler over that place, and due to that only I have found that generally the truck drivers always follow the lane. They don't change the lane only on the highway only, but in the city areas they just follow the lane. They don't move into this. So don't you think that
Freight is not generating energy? No, see, it is obvious. All of us know how two-wheelers movement takes place. And when we are also driving, we are also driving. Like, personally, I am also driving. That is like a universal truth in Indian society. But there are lanes, or you can say, see, urban. It is not that only freight vehicles are causing congestion. Only freight vehicles are causing congestion ऐसा नहीं है, but freight vehicles के कुछ inherent characteristics हैं जो automatically congestion develop करेंगे. Okay, if let's say see there are concepts like traffic volume, then there are number of vehicles, traffic density, is what number of vehicles in a particular stretch of line. So traffic volume or traffic density speed से directly proportional. If you go to the technicality of it. More the speed, more number of vehicles will be crossing a particular section. Okay, whether it is a two-wheeler or a three-wheeler or a car or anything. Okay. Now, freight vehicle का एक inherent property है वो slow move करेगा. So when there are 100 vehicles in a row, 100 vehicles in a pack of vehicles, okay, on a stretch of road, there are 4 vehicles, only 4 freight vehicles. but बाकी सारे vehicles का average speed है 45. ये freight vehicle का average speed है 80, maximum 20. So it is by default it is generating congestion. वो लेन क्रॉस कर रहा है या नहीं, या वो लेन चेंज कर रहा है या नहीं, that doesn't matter. और वो तो उसका inherent property है, वो 20 के ऊपर तो ट्रैफिक गवर्नमेंट चला ही नहीं पाएगा. So many a times the congestion caused by the freight vehicle is not directly evident. हमको freight vehicle का congestion as a normal commuter हमको कब दिखेगा पता है? जब कोई freight vehicle खड़ा रहेगा. कोई रिवर्स ले रहा है, खड़ा हो गया रोड पे, रिवर्स इतने ज़्यादा स्लो ले रहा है कि पीछे ट्रैफिक जाम हो गया, देन वी फील हाँ इसके वजह से ट्रैफिक. ओके, या फिर कोई लोडिंग अनलोडिंग स्टार्ट कर दिया, या कहीं ना किसी फ्रेट व्हीकल ने बीच में पार्क कर दिया, देन वी रियलाइज दैट ओके इट इज जनरेटिंग ट्रैफिक, बिकॉज इट इज नॉट नेसेसरी नो दैट एवरी टाइम we are using a particular road, it is not necessary that we are coming across a freight vehicle side by side. Okay, so we get to know that freight vehicle is generating congestion only when we see it. But उसका एक inherent property है कि वो slow चलेगा. उसका inherent property है कि उसका dimension बड़ा है. Okay, और ये normal tendency है, अगर आपने देखा होगा वो people have a tendency of maintaining some distance, lateral distance. So freight vehicle से वो lateral distance का भी tendency बढ़ जाता है. क्यों? क्योंकि उसका speed कम है. उसके लिए टर्न लेना इजी है, बट वो जो बाकी में 60 के स्पीड से जा रहा है उसके लिए टर्न लेना इजी नहीं है. सो बाय डिफॉल्ट ड्राइवर क्या रहेगा, डिस्टेंस ज़्यादा रहेगा. तो उसके डायमेंशन और उसके सराउंडिंग में वो अपना और एक एयर बॉल लेके चल रहा है, उसका डायमेंशन उतना वो एक स्लो मूविंग प्रोडक्ट चल रहा है. सो बाय डिफॉल्ट इट इज अफेक्टिंग योर फ्लो. times it is not visible. That is.
How the season changes will affect this urban trade?
Definitely it will affect. See, as I have told before also, हर एक commodity का हर एक industry का freight cycle अलग है. Let's say if we talk about FMCG, there will be perishable goods like dairy products or your vegetables or your fruits, etc. So जो naturally available है जैसे fruits, vegetables है, उसका season रहता है. उसको एक season पे वो peak पे available होते हैं, फिर उसका reduce हो जाता है. Let's say there is a season when more apples will be available. If you go on road, there will be people standing with carts. Okay, so वो apple season है. So more number of trucks are coming from particular place where apples are produced, growing, to a place where it is used more. जब apple का season नहीं होगा तब वो trucks नहीं आएंगे और आपको road पे भी वो lorries नहीं दिखेंगे जो apple बेच रही है. So this is a seasonal change. Again, this is with reference to FMCG. If you go with reference to some other product which is like having a bigger shelf life, for example, a marriage season. Okay. For example, when you are having marriage season, more number of freight vehicles that are carrying stage and bamboo, yeah, and event management industry. So that event management industries will, for them it is a peak season. So there will be more trips. Okay, likewise. So it is obvious that in a, you can say,
Does it make any significant change to this trend?
yes. For my study, I have used Visum, VISM, the same company that is developing Visum. Visum is for passenger, Visum is for transport plan. So you do not have a specific module for freight as such, but you can use Visum. The input that we give will only be for freight vehicles. So simulation will also be only for freight vehicles. Additionally, you can add passenger vehicles to it, provided we are having data of that also. Or if you are importing a data from some other study directly or things like that. But seasonal movement will be there, but in urban scenario, in regional freight it is very significant. In the region, when we talk about regional freight is freight among different cities or different states. Number of trucks coming from Himachal to Gujarat.
Yes, exactly.
That is a regional freight. That is a regional freight. The regional freight पे seasonal effect बहुत significant है.
Yes.
Clearly-
Same goes to question also.
Clearly visible होगा regional freight में. Urban freight पे that intensity gets reduced. But effects will be there. Thing is, किसी एक चीज का सीजन नहीं है तो किसी दूसरे चीज का सीजन है.
But how they will feel the weather effect? Like snowfall, heavy rainfall. How they will be?
कश्मीर नहीं तो नागपुर कहीं से तो कुछ भी तो आएगा ही आएगा. या तो
See,
संतरा.
your question is pertaining to regional freight basically.
Yes.
Okay, so if I'm not wrong, you are asking how weather will affect the regional freight side.
Yes.
So, like, see, if the weather becomes, you can say, if the weather is not good enough, your travel time will increase. So overall, your efficiency. Let's say I have 5,000 tons of apples to be transported from Himachal to Gujarat, for example. Now, if the travel time was supposed to be 25 hours, instead of that, due to snowfall or due to some other unfavorable weather condition, from 25 hours it becomes 35 hours. So now I have a limited number of trucks available for transport. So let's say if it was to be completed in 25 days, or it will be completed in 35 days, for example. So by the time the overall system, you can say, take 10 more days, it will generate you can say deficit of apples over here where it is used. Rates might increase, transport rate might decrease.